to former boss of car maker Nissan Carlos Ghosn, who is all set to hold a news conference in Beirut in Lebanon any moment now. Ghosn is expected to provide details of his dramatic escape from Japan. He's also likely to defend himself against charges of financial misconduct. Bear in mind, Ghosn arrived in Lebanon early this week after jumping parole in Japan, where he was kept under surveillance ahead of a crucial trial. Japan says that it continues to investigate how Ghosn managed to slip past the security measures. Reports suggest that he traveled 300 miles to Kansai Airport in Osaka on a high-speed train. His travel was aided by detectives who were hired by Nissan. He managed to escape after round-the-clock surveillance of his property was stopped. And now he's going to begin talking. Let's listen in.
I want to thank you for taking the time to be here, with many of you traveling great distances to join me. Ça, c'est le seul endroit où je vais parler en plusieurs langues. Je voudrais aussi saluer nos amis de la presse française qui nous ont rejoints. وأنا حابب كمان سلم على كل أصدقاء اللبنانية. أنا اليوم فخور كون لبناني، لأنه إذا في بلد بالعالم وقف معي بهالصعوبات هو لبنان. As you can imagine, today is a very important day for me. One that I have looked forward to every single day for more than 400 days, since I was brutally taken from my world as I knew it, ripped from my family, my friends, my communities, from Renault, Nissan and Mitsubishi, and the 450,000 women and men who comprise those companies. I have not experienced a moment of freedom since November 19, 2018. It is impossible to express the depth of that deprivation, and my profound appreciation to once again be able to be reunited with my family and loved ones. Today is also a poignant reminder of the day precisely 1 year ago when I appeared before many of you, as well as a Japanese judge and prosecutors in Tokyo. I pleaded my innocence I did so while constrained by handcuffs and bound by a leash around my waist, which was used to walk me into the courtroom. I was in the midst of being held indefinitely in solitary confinement after several failed attempts at bail. I had just spent the Christmas and New Year holiday alone and in confinement, and I hadn't spoken to or seen my family for 6 weeks. My only contact with them were letters shown to me by lawyers through a looking glass. I had spent the previous months being interrogated for up to 8 hours a day without any lawyers present, without an understanding of what exactly I was being accused of, without access to the evidence that justify this travesty against my human rights and dignity. It will get worse for you if you don't just confess, the prosecutor told me repeatedly, and this has been taped. You can look at the tapes because the tapes are being held. You can see how many times they came up about, you just confess and it will be over. And if you don't confess, not only we're going to go after you, we're going to go after your family. And we're going to discover many things. Every day I woke up on nights that I was able to sleep and to make a decision. Do I fight for my innocence, or do I do as they say? And there was no end in sight. And those conditions remained more or less the same, day after day, week after week, month after month. The feeling of hopelessness was profound. And every day for over 130 days in detention, I fought for my innocence. When I was finally granted bail for the first time and saw the opportunity to share with you all what I intend to share today, I was ruthlessly thrown back in solitary confinement within 24 hours, a confinement that flies in the face of global and United Nations standards of justice. This is why today is such an important occasion for me. I'm not here to talk about how I managed to leave Japan, although I can understand that you are interested in that. I'm here to talk about why I left. For the first time since this nightmare began, I can defend myself, speak freely, and answer your questions. It was very easy to beat on me while I was in prison. It was very, very easy to describe me the way I was described. Unfortunately, not only in Japan. But now I'm going to be able to speak with facts and data and evidence, and hopefully you will discover the truth, not as it has been travestied by the people who are accusing me, or the people who join this accusation, or the accomplices not only in Japan but outside Japan. But the reality is very different, and hopefully today you're going to discover it with me. I'm not here to victimize myself. I'm here to shed light on a system that violates the most basic principles of humanity. I'm here to clear my name and to pronounce clearly and emphatically something that was interpreted as a heresy in the Japanese judicial system. These allegations are untrue, and I should have never been arrested in the first place. First, I would like to begin by expressing my profound gratitude to those who supported me during this unspeakable ordeal, in the face of a systematic campaign by a handful of malevolent actors to destroy my reputation and impugn my character. I'm grateful beyond words for the steadfast love and support of my family, my wife, Carol, my 4 children, my 3 sisters, my mother, Rose, Carol's children and family. They all endured unimaginable pain. They learned of my arrest and solitary confinement through the media. They were barred from seeing me or even speaking to me for months. They were targeted by relentless, shameless, baseless media attacks orchestrated by Japanese prosecutors, Nissan executives, and unfortunately many accomplices. I think of my supportive friends, as well as the numerous anonymous individuals who sent me letters of support while I was in the detention center of Kosuge. I think of the Lebanese authorities and citizens who never lost their faith in me. They showed the world that for a small country, Lebanese people have a big soul, they have a big heart, and a true sense of righteousness. I think of my lawyers around the globe who wage a valiant battle, putting their career on the line and devoting their full energy against a corrupt and hostile system that presumed my guilt from day one and was designed to break my spirit and coerce my confession. I also want to thank the human rights and criminal justice advocates globally, and particularly in Japan, who have fought tirelessly against insuperable odds to improve Japan's anachronistic and inhumane system of hostage justice. It is a system that is indifferent to the truth, indifferent to fairness and process, indifferent to fundamental civil liberties and accepted norms of justice. I also want to take a moment to mention Greg Kelly, an honorable man, husband and father, who was brutally torn from his word and his family on that November day, summoned to Tokyo under false pretenses by Harinada when he needed to stay home for an important surgery. Greg remains a victim of the Japanese hostage justice system with no trial date in sight 14 months after his arrest. While my plight has captured the headlines, we and you cannot forget Greg's ordeal and the pain he and family endure each day at the hands of the Japanese system. He is being punished precisely because he is honorable and refused to participate in a suspicious pre-bargaining agreement alongside Harinada and Onuma and probably many others. Thanks to the systematic leaking of false information and distorted information, and the intentional withholding of exculpatory information by the prosecutor and by Nissan, I was presumed guilty before the eyes of the world and subject to a system whose only objective is to coerce confessions, secure guilty pleas without regard to the truth. I have come to learn that my unimaginable ordeal over the past 14 months is the result of a handful of unscrupulous, vindictive individuals at Nissan, at the Latham & Watkins law firm, with the support of the Tokyo Prosecutor Office. It is important for me to emphasize that I'm not above the law, and I welcome the opportunity for the truth to come out and to have my name vindicated and my reputation restored. I did not escape justice. I fled injustice and persecution, political persecution. Having endured more than 400 days of inhumane treatment in a system designed to break me and unwilling to provide me even minimal justice, I was left with no other choice but to protect myself and my family. It was a difficult decision and a risk one only takes if resigned to the impossibility of a fair trial. With the strings being pulled and manipulated by those dead set on securing a confession or a conviction whose only goal is to save face. The facts, the truth, justice are irrelevant to these individuals. This was the most difficult decision of my life, but let us not forget that I was facing a system where the conviction rate is 99.4%. And I will bet you that this number is much higher for the foreigners. The legitimacy of a justice system should not rest on its conviction rate, but instead on the confidence that it searches for and honors truth and dispenses fair and just outcomes. It is the prosecutors, aided and abetted by petty, vindictive and lawless individuals in government at Nissan and the Latham law firm, who have destroyed and are destroying Japan's reputation on the global stage. It is them who are fueling an archaic, manipulative, arbitrary side to an otherwise modern country. It is them who should be held accountable. The charges against me are baseless. Why do you think the prosecutors have leaked false information to the press against the Japanese law? Why have they intentionally concealed exculpatory evidence that support my innocence? We're going to see it. Why have they continually delayed the still undetermined, 13 months after, the still undetermined trial date, and extended relentlessly the investigation timeline? Why have they rearrested me and seized all my legal defense documents? Why were they so intent on preventing me from talking and holding a press conference where I would set forth the facts and my side of the story? Why have they spent 14 months trying to break my spirit, banning me from all contact with my wife, and surveying my every move? Let me, before going to your question, and I know you have many, try to give you some answer. And I'm going to follow particularly 5 topics. The first topic is why all of this happened. At the beginning, why all of this happened. The second is, how did it happen? I'm going to tell you a little bit of what I've been through for 14 months. Third is, we're going to come back to the 4 charges that the prosecutor have put on me. And I'm going to explain to you the charges. We're going to also talk about all the charges that have been at the base of what I call the smear campaign, that the prosecutor didn't dare even put them in the accusation, but they are flying through the media with many fantasist interpretation, and unfortunately with some official position which are absolutely not rigorous on them. And finally, I'm going to do some words about the alliance Renault and Nissan. Where are they today, 1 year later? What is the situation of these three entities 1 year later? And then I will let you answer all your questions. So let me start with the first item, which is why. Okay? If we say, okay, this is a plot, and this is something which has been organized, why? What are the reasons for this? Well, we have two reasons. There are probably many, but I'm going to give you the main one. The two main reasons for this to happen. The first one was the fact that Nissan performance unfortunately started to decline at the beginning of 2017. I will remind you that in October 2016, I have decided to remove myself from the operation of Nissan because I signed the deal with Mitsubishi, taking control of 34% of Mitsubishi, and Mitsubishi needed help. So I moved to Mitsubishi as chairman of the board, as future chairman of the board, to support Masuko-san into reviving this company. And I told Saikawa-san, okay, we're going to propose you as co-CEO. Yeah, but this is also something we should say. The CEOs are not named by their predecessor. They are named by the board. They are proposed by the predecessor, but it is the board decision. So when people say, oh, Monsieur Bolloré was named by Mr. Ghosn, wrong. Mr. Bolloré was named by the board. He was proposed by Carlos Ghosn, but he was named by the board. So when they say, oh, he was named by Mr. Ghosn, that means he has no legitimacy, it's dead wrong. It's not factual. The members of the board of Renault voted unanimously to nominate him as CEO. And 9 months later, that unanimously voted him down. That's the reality. So let's come back to our story about Saikawa. Nominated in October 2016, CEO of the company. I moved to Mitsubishi. I told him, now it's your turn. I promised that one day I will return this company after having been CEO for 17 years. After having been CEO for 17 years of a dead company in 1999. I left with him $20 billion in cash. A company which was profitable, which was growing, which was respected. A brand which was nowhere in 1999, which became one of the top 60 brands in the world. That's what I left with him. I told him, you take care of it, now it's your turn. Let me help Mitsubishi, let me take care of Renault, and let me take care of the alliance. Unfortunately, a CEO is here as long as he performs. I didn't stay 17 years head of Nissan because I was Carlos Ghosn. I was there only because I was performing. I was delivering growth, I was delivering profit, I was delivering cash flow, I was delivering dividends. That's our reason to be. Unfortunately, we started in 2017 to see a decline in the performance of the company. Obviously, many tough discussions. In 2018, another decline, many tough discussions. But at the same time, he was the CEO and he was responsible for it, so he has to find the solution with his own team. So there was some nervousness in the ranks of the top management, and particular ranks in the top management, that at a certain point in time, patience will run out and change will come. That's number one. Number two, well, we have to come back to the history of the alliance. There was a famous Florange law in France that has been voted, given double voting rights for the shareholders who have more than 2 years. We, as board of Renault, opposed this rule. And we have the right, because the law allowed us, if there is more than 2/3 of the shareholders voting to pass over this rule, it was possible. We didn't prevail because, as you know, the French state increased its stake into the company, blocked the majority of 2/3. We have most of the shareholders with us, but we were not able to reach the 2/3 of the shares. This left a big bitterness with our friends in Japan. Not only with the management of Nissan, but also with the governments of Japan. And this left a big taste because somehow they considered that it is unfair that Nissan, who owns 15% of shares in Renault, has zero voting right, and that the French state, which owns 15% of Renault, has double voting rights. We tried to explain it. We were not successful, unfortunately. And this is where the problem started. because there started to be some kind of defiance from our Japanese colleagues, not only about the lines, but also about me, particularly when I've been asked before renewing my mandate, which, by the way, I didn't ask for. I was ready to retire before June 2018. I was asked that I was probably the best person to continue for the next step of the lines. And unfortunately, I accepted this offer. And probably one of the reasons for which I'm in this situation today is because I accepted this offer to continue to integrate the two companies, converge the two companies, always respecting the autonomy of each company, because this is a management belief that you're not going to make a strong company with people who are thinking they are second-rate citizens in a big organization. I want the Japanese to be proud of Alliance. I want Renault to be proud of the Alliance. I didn't want a first-rate citizen and a second-rate citizen. I want each company to be totally, and there was a system, I proposed a system to maintain that, even though I made the Alliance irreversible. Unfortunately, there was no trust. And some of our Japanese friends thought the only way to get rid of the influence of Renault on Nissan is to get rid of me, which unfortunately they were right, because when you see exactly what's happening today, where Renault has very little influence on what's going on in Nissan, even though they put a nice face on what's taking place, you know exactly that the Japanese have the right analysis by saying, we get rid of him, we will get much more autonomy for Nissan. Unfortunately, as you know, we're going to talk about the results. The results that were expected are not the one that everybody was hoping for. So, who are the people? I promised you names. I'm going to give you names. Okay? Who was part of the plot? Obviously, Saikawa is part of the plot. Harinada is part of the plot, obviously, and Onuma, because they showed. But there are many other people. Toyoda, member of the board, was the link between the board of Nissan, and the authorities. Now, I can talk about what happens in the government of Japan. I can give you names, I know them. But I am in Lebanon, I respect Lebanon, and I respect the hospitality that has been extended to me by the authorities in Lebanon. And in no way I want to do anything or say anything that would make their task more difficult. So I'm imposing on myself silence on this part of the presentation, because in no way I want to show anything or say anything that would hurt the interest of the Lebanese people or the Lebanese government. So I will stop there for the government. Kawaguchi, Imazu, chief auditor, Toyoda, these are the main people. Obviously there are many other people participating to it, but I have all the names. I'm limiting to the main people who are involved. The prosecutor, I will mention some of the names. You're going to have the people who have been from all the sides of the fences, like the lawyer company LW that we were using in the past and continue to help Nissan, even though attacking some of the advice that they have given us when we were in charge, and now they are supporting the new team. So the story is very long, but I'm going to limit myself. How? Decline of the performance of Nissan, suspicion about the next step of the irreversibility of the lines. These are the two reasons for which this happened. How? I was arrested on November 19, 2018. I didn't suspect anything. And I didn't suspect anything because I was not anymore the CEO of the company, I was chairman. And now I delegate. Some people ask me, oh my God, that means you didn't look at this, you didn't mention this, you didn't suspect this. And it happened that it was a colleague, one of your colleagues from the US, and I say, you know, what happened in Pearl Harbor? Did you see Pearl Harbor happening? Did you see Pearl Harbor happening? Did you notice what happened in Pearl Harbor? You know, so you're telling me, you're asking me how did I notice, and I was not even in my country, that something like this was being cooked against me, and you're telling me how I didn't notice. I didn't notice it. And I didn't notice it because it is true that when it's planned and it's confidential and it's secret, Well, it happens, and you'll be surprised, and I was surprised. There was a stage arrest. I've been told, I didn't know, that the world was led to know that I was arrested in the airplane. Bullshit. I was arrested in the airport. I came down from the airplane, I was taken in a car, I arrived to the passport, they told me there is a problem with my visa, they took me in a small room, and this is where I found Seki, prosecutor, telling me, I'm from the prosecutor office, I need to talk to you, and since then say you cannot use anymore your phone, and I know I was arrested, and I understand what's going on. And because I was surprised, I told him, okay, can I at least give a phone call to Nissan to send a lawyer? Well, obviously I didn't know that Nissan was behind it, and it was all staged way before between the prosecutor and the company. This is the way it happened. And from there they took me to Kosuge detention center. It took 5 hours between my arrest and me finding myself into a tiny cell in Kosuge. The collusion between Nissan and the prosecutor is everywhere. The only people who don't see it, maybe, are the people in Japan. They don't see this collusion. And I've been told this is totally illegal. How can it be illegal? And at the same time, we have so many traces, so many hands on the wall, and nobody's talking about them. Well, you don't see if you don't want to see. But the collusion between Nissan and the prosecutor is coming through witnesses who were in the headquarters of Nissan, who told me exactly what happened before I was arrested, all the preparation, all the visits, a lot of the meeting that took place between the prosecutors and Nissan, at least without counting officials. And I'm not going to talk about the official, as I said.